Welcome to the NDE Nutrition Services School Nutrition Program training. In this section, we'll take a look at the documentation and record-keeping requirements under the National School Lunch Program. Our goal is to help you understand what's required to demonstrate meal pattern compliance, especially during a state agency review and audit. We'll also talk about how to organize and maintain accurate records to make your job easier and your operation audit ready. By the end of this training, you'll be able to identify tools and resources and feel more confident in documenting your program's compliance. Let's start with why documentation matters. First and foremost, documentation proves that your meals meet USDA meal pattern requirements. This is crucial to ensure that the meals you're serving are reimbursable. Without proper documentation, meals could be disallowed during a review, which means your school could lose out on valuable funding. Documentation also supports accurate claiming for reimbursement. You must be able to show that each meal served meets the required components for each age and grade group you're serving. In addition, this documentation is required during a state agency review. Reviewers will look at your records to verify meal pattern compliance, production records, recipes, CN labels, and more. Keeping clear and complete documentation is not just a best practice, it's essential. Next, let's take a look at what's required when it comes to menu records. You'll need to keep completed menus that include both planned and actual meals. The planned menu shows what you intend to serve, and the actual menu reflects any changes made during service. Each menu record must include all food items offered, portion sizes for each item based on the planned servings, and daily and weekly component totals. This helps verify that all required components are offered in the correct amounts over the week. Having this information documented ensures that your menus meet all meal pattern requirements and helps support the production records and crediting documentation you'll also need to maintain. Production records are a crucial part of running a compliant and successful school meals program. These records serve as your daily documentation that the correct types and amounts of food were prepared and served, and that your meal meets USDA meal pattern requirements for each grade group. Production records help ensure compliance with both federal and state regulations, accurate portion sizes based on age and grade group. It provides verification during an administrative review. They support menu planning, forecasting, and ordering. Production records are more than just paperwork. They're essential tools for both compliance and operation. Your records must include key details such as the menu, the serving sizes, the number of portions prepared and served, and any leftovers. There are a few different types of production records, and each serves a unique purpose depending on how your program operates. The most common type is the standard production record used for both breakfast and lunch. Next is the multi-day production record. This format is especially useful for tracking items that are set out regularly, like on a fruit and vegetable bar. For schools that receive meals from another location, like a central kitchen, a delivery ticket is required. This acts as a production record documenting what was delivered, in what quantities, and when. When it comes to organizing your production records, a simple system like a 3-ring binder goes a long way. You can separate breakfast and lunch into different sections and always have the most recent record on top. This makes it easy to find what you need quickly, especially during a review. The key is consistency. Choose a system that works for you and your team and keep it organized and up to date. When it comes to completing production records, a little prep goes a long way. To save yourself time and make the process easier, consider pre-printing general information and any items that are offered every day, such as milk choices or condiments. Let's walk through the top half of the production record, which is the planning section. This part can be filled out in advance. We'll start with step 1. Start by recording the planned number of students and adult meals in the upper left-hand corner. This gives you a reference point for forecasting and planning portion counts. Step 2. Write the menu for the day, including all components. That means entree options, fruits, vegetables, milk, and any extras. If you offer more than one entree, be sure to list each option clearly and indicate what students can choose from. For example, on the screen we have both breakfast and lunch production records. When you look at the breakfast record, on this day, students can choose cereal and toast or a cherry fruital. The other listed items are part of the planned menu. Recording every item helps demonstrate compliance with meal pattern. Step 3. Record the planned number of portions and serving sizes for each item, broke down by grade group. It is important to ensure you're offering the correct minimum quantities based on age and grade. When recording fruits and vegetables, list the portion size in cups rather than fluid ounces. For example, write 1/2 cup instead of 4 ounces to match the meal pattern requirement. On the next slide, we'll review the bottom half of the record. Now let's walk through the bottom half of the production record. This is the actual section where you'll document what was actually prepared, served, and left over for each item. We'll go through column by column. In the first column on the left, list the specific food item used during service. Be sure this matches what was planned or reflects any changes that occurred. The second column is used to mark whether the grain item is whole grain rich. Simply check the box if it applies. The third column is important. This is where you document if a school recipe was used, or write in the product brand or item number. Indicate if it was a commodity item if this is the case. A few details for this section is to make sure that the actual product brand is listed and not a distributor. For example, Cashway and US Foods are distributors. Instead, we need to see brands like Tyson, Highland, Sara Lee, etc. This matters because different brands may credit differently towards the meal pattern, and reviewers need that level of detail. In the fourth column, you'll record the number of seconds or a la carte servings planned, if any. The fifth column is where you record the total amount of prepared food. Using servings or pounds, and avoid listing things like cases or bags. This varies by brand, so make sure you have enough detail to verify crediting. The sixth column, you'll record leftovers. This is required. Be sure to use the same units here that you used in the prepared column. The seventh column is new. Instead of listing crediting at the top of the page, the column allows you to record how each item contributes to meal pattern directly next to the food item. This makes it easier to verify meal pattern compliance at a glance. Don't forget about milk. Schools are required to record the actual daily milk usage by milk type. For example, skim flavored, white, skim, 1% white. You can do this separately for breakfast and lunch, and if you decide you don't want to track here, you can use the multi-day form. Lastly, use the other section to record condiments and additional items served. While condiments do not credit towards meal pattern, they do contribute to calories, sodium, and fat, which must be assessed during a menu analysis. You can also record these on a multi-day form, but the usage and amounts must still be documented. Once meal service is done, you'll use the point of service report to enter the numbers on the bottom of the record for actual meal counts. Accurate, detailed entries help protect your program, show that you're serving compliant meals, and support good menu planning. On this slide, we have an example of that multi-day milk form. As you can see, you record the milk before and after service for breakfast and lunch. Some schools offer self-service options like a fruit and vegetable bar, and in those situations, a multi-day food bar record is a great tool. This form allows you to track food items placed on the bar across multiple days. Start by pre-printing the items that are set out regularly. For example, if you always offer romaine lettuce, baby carrots, and orange wedges, those can be listed in advance. Each day, record the amount of each item added to the bar, and then at the end of the day, you'll record any leftovers. Be sure to include the brand name of the item, the vegetable subgroup, and the unit of measure, whether it's pounds, cups, or servings. If you're setting out potentially hazardous foods like cut fruits or vegetables or cooked vegetables, you must record the time and temperature. Using the multi-day food bar record correctly helps you stay compliant, reduce waste, and maintain food safety. In some school meals programs, food is prepared on-site and then sent to another. This is common for vended programs or situations where food is delivered to the classroom, like a preschool meal service. In these cases, a delivery ticket is used to document the meal service across multiple locations. Here's how it works. The production kitchen, the site that prepares the food, is responsible for completing and maintaining the production record for the food prepared and sent. This includes documenting all planned food items, portion sizes, quantities prepared, and crediting information. The receiving site must document any additional food served at the location. This includes condiments, fruit and vegetable bar items, milk usage by type, and the leftovers. Each site also has a responsibility to maintain and record food temperatures at the point of service. This is essential for both food safety and compliance with health regulations. Together, the records form a complete picture of what was prepared, served, and consumed, ensuring that all sites remain compliant with USDA meal pattern and food safety requirements. The meal pattern check form is a valuable resource designed to help you plan menus that meet USDA requirements. New managers and those still getting familiar with the updated meal pattern requirements, this form is a great tool to use. It ensures that every meal component is accounted for and meets the standards. Additionally, during the state agency review, reviewers use this form to verify that the menus comply with the meal pattern. Using the meal pattern check form can boost your confidence in menu planning and help keep your program compliant. To ensure meals meet USDA meal pattern requirements, it's essential to verify how each food item credits towards the meal component. This process is called meal component crediting, and it must be supported by proper documentation. There are several approved ways to document crediting. Standardized recipes, they show exact ingredients, amounts, yields, and they confirm how each item contributes to meal pattern. Child nutrition labels, often called CN labels, are USDA issued labels found on packaged products. They also clearly state how the item credits towards meal components. Product formulation statements, or PFS, are provided by manufacturers when CN label isn't available. Ingredient and nutrition labels can be useful for simple items that support calculations done by the Food Buying Guide. The USDA Food Buying Guide is the primary resource used to calculate how raw and bulk items contribute to meal pattern. Within the Food Buying Guide, Exhibit A, the grain chart, helps determine grain ounce equivalents for items like bread, cereal, and crackers. It's important to keep all this documentation on file. Doing so supports your meal claims during a review and ensures that every reimbursable meal is fully creditable. Proper crediting and documentation protects your program and helps provide nutrition-compliant meals to every student. In the next few slides, we'll go through each example and talk about the documentation. In this first slide, we talk about standardized recipes. Standardized recipes are used for items made in-house. They ensure consistent quality and accurate portions. Your recipes must include ingredients and quantities, have preparation instructions, include serving size and yield, and of course crediting information for each meal component. Child nutrition labels, or CN labels, are found on many processed food products and provide official USDA-approved meal component crediting. These labels are essential because they simplify documentation and ensure that crediting is accurate and consistent across your menus. CN labels are especially useful for combination foods like a breaded chicken patty, pizza, or casseroles, where it can be difficult to determine crediting just from the ingredients. It's important to keep the original packaging with the CN label on file as part of your record, either physically or digitally. Let's go through an example. A breaded chicken patty with a CN label might credit as 2-ounce meat alternate plus 1-ounce grain. So using this CN label correctly helps protect your program and support your compliance. On this screen, we look at an example of a CN label. CN labels are specifically used for items that contain meat alternate components. It's important to note that food items which only credit as grain, fruit, or vegetable are not eligible for CN labels. Products to be eligible for a CN label must provide at least 0.5-ounce equivalent of meat alternate per serving. There are also a couple of resources available. The Food and Nutrition Services publishes 2 key reports to help you verify and understand CN labels. The CN Label Verification Report, which is updated regularly, and most recently in April of 2025, which confirms valid CN numbers, and the CN Label Manufacturers Report, which was also currently updated and lists manufacturers of CN labeled products. Remember, the CN number on the label applies to the CN logo and crediting statement. It's the manufacturer's responsibility to ensure the product label meets all other federal labeling requirements. These resources can help you confirm the product you are using are properly labeled and credit correctly towards meal components. Product formulation statements, or PFS, are documents provided by the manufacturer when child nutrition labels are not available for the product. These statements must be signed and printed on company letterhead to verify their authenticity. A PFS clearly explains how the product credits towards USDA meal pattern requirements. This document is essential for properly crediting processed and combination foods that don't have CN labels. Let's take a look at the example of the product formulation statement. This document is provided again by the manufacturer and must be signed and printed on official company letterhead. Notice that the product formulation statement clearly identifies the product name and description, so there is no confusion about which item it applies to. Pay close attention to the detailed crediting information, including the serving size and how the product contributes to meal components such as meat alternate, or grains. The statement may also include special preparation instructions that affect crediting. Check the date or version number to ensure that the statement is current and valid. It's important to keep these documents on file as part of your records. They support your meal pattern compliance and are crucial during a review. Ingredient and nutrition labels are important tools used to determine several key factors for meal crediting. They help you identify whether a product is whole grain rich and provides information on additional sugars and sodium content. You can also use the labels to confirm the serving size for crediting meal components. These labels are especially useful when other forms of crediting documentation like CN labels or product formulation statements are not available. Accurately interpreting ingredients and nutrition labels helps ensure your menu meets USDA meal pattern and nutrient standards. The food buying guide is a key resource to help you determine how much food to buy and prepare for your meal service. It provides information about yields and meal component contributions for a wide variety of foods, helping ensure each item meets meal pattern requirements. You can use the online food buying guide tool or app to quickly generate crediting reports and streamline menu planning. The food buying guide is an essential tool to support accurate purchasing, portioning, and crediting in your school meals program. Exhibit A, part of the food buying guide, is used to determine grain crediting for homemade or commercially prepared grain items that don't have labels. Unlike other components, grains credit as ounce equivalents rather than servings. This means the weight of the grain in the product determines how much must be served to meet meal pattern requirements. On the next slide, we'll look at some examples from the chart and discuss details to help you understand how to determine the importance of this resource. This chart helps you determine how grain items contribute to the USDA meal pattern requirements. It is divided into 9 groups, labeled A through I, listed down the left-hand column. Look at the right-hand column. This shows the weight or portion size in ounces or grams that the item must meet to credit. For example, in Group A, the item must weigh 0.8 ounces or 22 grams to credit as 1 ounce equivalent grain serving. Items in Group B must weigh 1 ounce or 28 grams to credit as 1 ounce equivalent grain serving, and so on. When you compare groups A, B, and C, you'll notice that as you move down the list, food items must weigh more to count as 1 grain serving. This happens because these products contain ingredients other than flour, like nuts, raisins, or chocolate chips, that reduce the flour content per serving. For example, a plain cookie in Group C must weigh 1.2 ounces to provide 1 grain serving. But a cookie with nuts and chocolate chips in Group E must weigh 2.4 ounces to credit as 1 grain serving. Next, let's look at Group H, which covers rice and pasta. Here, a half a cup of cooked rice or pasta counts as 1 ounce equivalent grain. So if rice or pasta is the only grain served that day, students in grades 9 through 12 need a full cup portion of cooked rice or pasta to meet their 2 ounce grain requirement. In Group I, cereal servings can vary by type. 1 cup flake cereal, 1/4 cup granola, or 1 1/4 cup puffed cereal all count as 1 ounce equivalent grain serving. Important reminders: you must always round down to the nearest 1/4 serving when using this chart. If an item in Group A weighed 0.7 ounces, you can only credit it as 3/4 ounce equivalent grain. You cannot round up to 1 ounce equivalent. Mastering how to use this chart is essential for accurately crediting grains and ensuring your menus meet USDA meal pattern requirements. Now that we've covered crediting and documentation for reimbursable meals, let's shift gears and talk about accommodating students with disabilities who require meal modifications and what the required documentation may look like for those needs. The USDA requires a medical statement signed by a state licensed healthcare professional or a registered dietitian when a request for meal modification falls outside of the standard meal pattern requirements. Food service workers must collaborate with households to meet the individual nutritional needs of students with disabilities. It is essential to ensure these students have safe, appropriate meals each school day. Just as important, schools are responsible for making sure families are informed of the process to request accommodations and that the process is clearly communicated and accessible. On the next slide, we'll look at the actual forms used when students require a meal accommodation. These examples help clarify what documentation is needed and what information should be included. There are 3 key categories of dietary accommodations we see in schools. 1 is within the meal pattern, 2 is outside the meal pattern, and 3 is lifestyle preferences. Accommodations within the meal pattern requirements. For these requests, a parent or guardian may complete a simple request form and no medical documentation is required. An example is Johnny is allergic to strawberries. The food service staff can offer other fruits when strawberries are on the menu. Since this meal still meets the required component, no further documentation is needed. For accommodations outside the meal pattern requirements, this request requires changes to the USDA meal pattern. A medical statement signed by a licensed healthcare provider or registered dietitian is required, along with the parent request. Example, Abby has celiac disease and must follow a gluten-free diet. In this case, a gluten-free grain must be made available. Just skipping the grain component is not acceptable. Food service staff should work with the household to find appropriate options to meet both the medical need and the meal pattern. And last is lifestyle choices. For personal or lifestyle choices, preferences to avoid certain foods is not required to make a meal accommodation. However, if your menu allows, and especially when using offer versus serve, students can make choices to suit their preference. For example, a student may prefer not to take milk or meat. If other components are selected and the meal still meets requirements, it can be claimed. Offering flexible menu options can help support inclusively without requiring menu changes. It's important to understand the difference between medical needs and preferences. While we must accommodate disabilities, we can use thoughtful planning and offer versus serve to support other needs while maintaining compliance. Now that we've looked at meal pattern requirements and crediting documentation, let's wrap up this section by talking about record keeping, something that supports everything we've covered so far. Accurate and organized record keeping is essential, not just for compliance, but for smooth daily operations and long-term program success. It allows your team to demonstrate that meals served meet USDA requirements and are eligible for reimbursement. Some best practices include keeping all records for 3 years plus the current school year, complete daily production records in full, maintain meal component documentation, organize records for easy access, whether stored physically in binders or digitally. If using digitally, remember to back up files annually. Remember, records belong to the school, not individual staff, so ensure they are retained even if staff changes. Train your team regularly so everyone understands what needs to be documented and how to do it properly. Good record keeping doesn't just help you pass a review, it improves forecasting, reduces waste, and supports better budgeting and planning. It's a crucial foundation for a successful and compliant program. Some key takeaways in this section is we looked at required production records and documentation to ensure meal pattern compliance. We provided resources and tools for meal crediting and menu planning. And we discussed organizing and maintaining accurate records. By consistently completing production records and using the right crediting tools and maintaining organized documentation, you'll help ensure compliant, high-quality meals for students and a successful, sustainable program.